6 na kayo. So we're going to proceed to ellipse. All right. So the ellipse, we obtain second degree equations for the circle and parabola. Hence, these curves are conics. We come now to another kind of curve, which is the ellipse. So like the circle, but unlike the parabola, is a closed curve. The new curve is a conic because its equation, as we shall demonstrate, is of the second degree in x and y. So an ellipse class is a closed figure in a plane that closely resembles an oval. So it's like an oval. Okay. An image of an ellipse class can be formed if a plane cuts a right circular cone and a plane which is not parallel. This ellipse. It's a closed curve. And then each of the fixed points is called a focus, which is plural for focus is foc. So we know that in parabola, there is here for ellipse, there is foci because we have
Ma'am, excuse me po, naka-mute po kayo.
ayun. Kanina in-unmute ko na eh. So wala pala akong hindi pala ako naririnig kanina. So again, the second another kind of curve is ellipse. So this is also an example of a curve because it demonstrates a second degree in x and y. Okay, an ellipse class is a closed figure in a plane that closely resemble an oval. So it's like an oval-like. Okay, that is ellipse. Uh, an ellipse is the set of all points in a plane such that the such that is of P from two fixed points, which is the F prime and F on the plane, is constant. So the distance from focus to another focus. So here for ellipse class, we have two focus, or we called it foci since that is the plural of focus. Okay, their distance, okay, the sum of their distances is equal to 2a. Okay, so from there, makabuo tayo ng standard form for ellipse, okay, with center at the origin. Okay, so as the pencil at P moves with the string thought, the curve trace is an ellipse. So again, last time, pinakita natin yung image ng ellipse, which is the intersection of the right circular cone and plane, right? So that is the one that is formed from the intersection of a right circular cone and the plane, which is not parallel to the generator, is called ellipse. Okay, so to find the equation of an ellipse, we take the original of coordinates midway between the foci and one of the coordinate axes on the line through the foci. we denote the distance between the foci by 2c. So the sum of the two of the foci is equal to 2a. When we use the distance formula and when we simplify it, we're going to come up. So we will not derive the formula kasi na-derive naman din natin yan sa parabola. So the process is just the same. Okay? And then we will have this standard form, okay, with center at the origin. X squared is x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. So I'm going to make a table again for us to easily list all the required parts and condition under ellipse. So for ellipse, okay, with center at the origin, so if the ellipse with foci on the x-axis, we will have the standard form x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. So if this is the standard form, the foci is on the x-axis. It means that the major axis along the x-axis or on the x-axis. So titingnan nyo lagi kung nasan si A, nandoon ang major axis. So dito ang denominator ng x squared ay a squared. Therefore, the foci is on the x-axis. If the ellipse with foci on the y-axis, the standard form is y squared over a squared plus x squared over b squared equals 1. Okay, so here the major axis or the foci and the vertices on the y-axis. Kasi ang denominator ni y ay a squared. Kung nasan si A, nandun ang vertices. Okay? The B is for the minor axis. So dito meron tayong major axis and minor axis. So paano ba natin malalaman sa graph kung nasa ng major axis? So ibig sabihin nito, ang major axis nasa x-axis. So ibig sabihin, mas mahaba sa x-axis. Okay, something like that. The center is at the origin. For y-axis, ang graph niyan class, mas mahaba naman sa y. Kasi nandun ang foci at ang vertices. Something like that. So just assume it's an oval. Okay, that is the center at the origin. For the vertices class, okay, vertices, since the foci is on the x-axis, the vertices is also on the x-axis. Therefore, we will have positive, negative, 0. Okay, vertices is always for A. Okay, so here the major axis is along the x-axis. So your vertices, the coordinates is positive, negative, A, 0. For if your foci is on the x-axis class, your vertices, the coordinates of your vertices is 0, positive, negative, A, since the major axis is on the y-axis. Okay? So next, vertices, foci. So sabi natin, kung nasa ng vertices, nandun din ang foci. But foci is for C. Positive, negative C, 0. Okay? The coordinates for foci, positive, negative C, 0. And if the foci is on the y-axis, the coordinates for foci is 0, positive, negative, C. Okay. By the way, Klaus, how are we going to find the value of C? For ellipse class, always use that where C is equal to the square root of A squared minus B squared, where A is always greater than the B, because A is the major axis and B is for the minor axis. Okay? So vertices, foci, we have the B. B is for the, so here vertices is for major axis. Kaya nagloloko yung tablet ko. And so we will have B, F, and for the minor axis class, we will have, kung ang major axis ay nasa x-axis, syempre ang minor mo ay nasa y. But you're going to use B. Okay? Dito naman, kung ang foci ay nasa y-axis and even the vertices, the minor axis, this is for minor axis, is positive, negative, B, 0. Okay? Kasi ang major axis mo nasa y. Therefore, ang minor axis nasa x. Okay, so we have vertices, foci, minor axis. And then the lattice rectum. Lattice rectum. We know that lattice rectum is perpendicular, right? Sa parabola. Bawa, this is the parabola. The lattice rectum is where? That is the opening, right? Ito. That is perpendicular to what? To, if this is the directrix. This is the directrix. The lattice rectum is parallel to directrix and perpendicular kung saan ito kasi ay symmetric sa y. So tama, perpendicular to that symmetric axis. Nagagano. All right. So lattice rectum, how about here? So sa lattice rectum class, dalawa dito, dito. Hindi na natin kukunin. Meron din tong direct, pero dito dahil dalawa ang focus niya, may foci tayo. Dalawa ang direct vertices niya. Pero hindi na natin kukunin. Dito man. Dito ay sa X. Pa-X nga pala to. That is also the opening. Kung gaano kalaki ba ang ellipse. Pero yung pinaka ginagamit doon class is the eccentricity. Kung ang value ng eccentricity ay equal sa 0, yun naman ay, kaya ang circle class, the eccentricity of a circle is equal to 0. Okay? Kasi ano na siya, yung pabilog na. It's a perfect curve. I mean, it's a perfect circle. That's the opening. It's a special type of ellipse ang circle. So kung ang ellipse mo ay malapit sa 0, big sabihin yung opening ng ellipse mo ay mas malaki. Okay? So dun siya, sa eccentricity siya. How about the lattice rectum under ellipse? So the equation for lattice rectum, if if the foci is on the x-axis, the equation is x equals positive, negative, c. Okay? Sinusundan niya ang foci sa lattice rectum. Okay? Kasi ang foci natin dito, kung nasa ng major axis, so we will have the equation x equals positive, negative, 6, c. So dalawa class ang lattice rectum kasi dalawa ang foci. So ganun din dito, if the major axis is along the y-axis or the foci is on the y-axis, the equation is y equals positive, negative c. Okay, that is the equation for lattice rectum. And the direction of the lattice rectum is, here we will have vertical, and here we will have horizontal. So we will have yung opening niya, this one. And here, gaano kalaki ang ellipse opening niya. Okay, and then the length of the lattice rectum, we will have 2b squared over a. Same here, 2b squared over a. Okay, so ano pa? So let's try example. Ang pinakamahalaga dyan, class, ay vertices, foci, your minor axis. So vertices is for major axis. And of course, the center. Hindi na natin i-graph ang latus rectum and directrices. Pero meron yan, class. Okay? Ang kailangan lang natin para mag-graph yung mismong ellipse, ayan, major axis, minor axis, and the foci. All right, so let's try example. For one of an ellipse. with foci at 0, positive, negative 4. And a vertex at 0, 6. All right, so we're going to find the equation of an ellipse with foci at 0, positive, negative 4, and a vertex at 0, 6. All right, so here the given or one of the focus, the foci is at 0, positive, negative 4, and vertex is 0, 6. Okay, so as you've noticed sa focus class, nasa Y siya. Ibig sabihin, the major axis is at Y axis. Nandun ang vertices. Kaya yan 0, 6. So we have the vertices 0, positive, negative, 6. And obviously, the center is at the origin. Since the foci is 0, positive, negative 4, and also the vertices, the center is at the origin. Okay. How are we going to find the foci? And so we will have the minor axis. So we will have for foci class, that is for C. Foci, we will have the coordinates 0, positive, negative C. For vertices, we will have 0, positive, negative A. So we don't know the value of B. So we're going to find the value of B. B is equal to the square root of A squared minus, pwede din C squared. Kasi lagi namang mas malaki si A kay C. Kasi ito ay nandito ang major axis. So you can have positive, negative. Positive, negative. A squared here, the value of A is 6. So the square root of that, 36. Minus, the value of C is 4. Square that, 16. So B is positive, negative. 36 minus 16, that is 20. Or positive, negative 4. I know, not 4. 2 square root of 5. Okay. So we will have now the major axis or the foci is on the y-axis. So we will have y squared over, ang value ng A natin ay 6. So A squared of that, that's 36, plus x squared over the minor axis B. Square root of 20, we will have 20 equals 1. Or pwede namang pagbaliktarin nyo, x squared over 20 plus y squared over 36. So when we graph, so dapat ito class ay patayo kasi ang major axis natin ay nasa y. So we'll have major axis, the vertices 0, 6. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. Foci is 4. 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the minor axis, this one, nasa x. Positive, negative, 2 square root of 5 0. Square root of 20 bago mag 5. Ang square root of 25, 5. So medyo 4 something. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so ang kailangan nyo class, si foci ay laging nasa loob ng ellipse. Ang magta-touch ang vertices at ang minor axis, B at B prime. Okay, so ibig sabihin class ito ay, yan, patay ko siya yung ellipse kasi ang major axis natin along the y-axis. That's it. By the way class, hindi naman sinabing i-graph. Sabi lang, find the equation of an ellipse. Para lang makita natin or ma-check din natin kung tama ba tong sagot natin. Okay, so that's number 1, example. Is that clear? Question sa 1?
And so far po.
Okay. Next. Number 2. Sketch the ellipse. 9x squared plus 25y squared equals 225. Sketch the ellipse 9x squared plus 25y squared equals 225. Before we graph this, we need to write this in standard form. Find the vertices, foci, the coordinates for the minor axis. So we will have 9x squared plus 25y squared equals 225. So we're going to divide both sides by 225 so that yung nasa right side natin mag-i-equal sa 1. Okay? 9x squared divided by 225, we will have x squared over 25. Because 9 over 225 is 1 over 25. Plus 25y squared divided by 225, we will have y squared over 9. Because 25 over 225, that is equal to 1 over 9. Equals 225 divided by 225. The answer is 1. So now our answer is already in standard form. So the question is, where is the vertices? Vertices, class, yung laging mas malaking value. So our a squared here is 25 because a is always greater than the b and even the c. So a squared is equal to 25. The major axis is on the x-axis. Therefore, our a here is positive, negative 5. Laging dalawang values, class. Kasi this is an equation. If we are going to square root both sides, the value of a is, this is an equation, kaya laging dalawa ang sagot. Positive, negative, 5. Pero pag tinanong, what is the square root of 25? Isa lang ang kinukuha natin doon, yung principal root. Kasi hindi naman yun equation, right? It's just an expression. Square root of 25, something like that, or square root of 100. Okay? But we are encountering an equation, so we need to have positive, negative squared because over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1. If b squared equals 3, we don't know the value of c. C is equal to positive negative a squared, square root of a squared minus c squared.
Ang B squared po.
Sorry, b squared. So the value of c is positive negative. A squared is 25 minus b squared is 9. So 25 minus 9,
16.
that is positive negative square root of 16, and square root of 16 is 4. Okay, so here class, when we analyze, the vertices is along the x-axis. The major axis is along the y-axis. Therefore, if it's in the y-axis, your vertices at your major axis is in x. Bakit y? Kasi mas malaki ang denominator ni x squared. So, nasa x-axis. So, ang vertices natin, ang coordinates, so we will have positive, negative a. Positive, negative a, which is 5, 0. Foci, kung nasaan ang vertices, nandun din. Pero ang value ni c, positive, negative 4, 0. And for the minor axis, the coordinates 0, positive, negative. This is for B. Positive, negative 3. Okay, and then you graph. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. P, P prime. Foci 4. And negative 4. F. Okay, and the minor axis, the coordinates 0, 3, 1, 2, 3. 0, negative 3. B, B prime. Tapos, i-connect nyo yan. Diba? Ang ganda ng drawing. I-graph nyo dyan sa notes nyo. Alright. So, kunwari, ellipse. Mukha siyang oblong. Kunwari. Okay, that's the graph. So, as you've noticed, mas malaki sa x-axis kasi nandun ang major axis natin along the x-axis. Is that clear, class?
Yes, po.
Okay. Next example. So I'm going to add an example number 3. We're going of the ellipse with center at the origin that satisfies the given condition. Draw the ellipse. So the given is the length of the LR or the lattice rectum class. Ano ba yung nangyayari sa tablet? Of the LR is 8 feet. 8 feet. And the vertices have coordinates Mhm. 0, positive, negative 5. That's it. The length of the lattice rectum is 8/5 and the vertices have coordinates 0, positive, negative 5. So how are we going to find the equation? So we're going to use the information. The length of the LR is 8/5. What is the formula to find the length of the LR? So we will have 2b squared over a. That is equal to 8/5. Okay, so when we simplify it, we can use cross multiplication, or the product of the means is equal to the product. Then b squared equals 8a. And we have here the vertices. And we know that for vertices class, that is 0, positive, negative a. It means that the value of a here is 5. So 10 b squared equals 8 multiplied by 5. Since we're talking about length, ang kailangan natin kunin yung positive. Okay, so we will have 10b squared equals 8 times 5. The answer is 40. Divide by 10. So b squared is equal to 40 divided 10. That is 4. Okay, so since a is equal to 5, therefore a squared is 25. We have b squared, which is 4. Okay, now we can write now the standard form. The standard form, the major axis or the foci of this ellipse is on the y-axis. Ibig sabihin, ang vertices natin ay nasa y-axis. So we'll have y squared over 25 plus x squared over 4 equals 1. Okay, that is the equation if the length of the lattice rectum is 8/5 and the vertices negative 5. And if you're asked to graph it, B. B 2, ganun din sa A, positive, negative 5. For the C, that's square root of A squared minus B squared. So we will have positive, negative 25, square root of 25 minus 4, which is positive, negative. Square root of 25 minus 4, it's 21. Okay, so vertices 0, positive, negative 5, foci 0, positive, negative, square root of 21. For the endpoints of minor axis, this is for B, we'll have positive, negative 2, 0. Then you plot the points. 0, positive, negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Positive, negative square root of 21. Malapit din yan sa square root of 25, which is 5. Pero 4 point something lang din siya. So, assume nandyan siya. 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, hindi naman siya magta-touch sa graph eh. Nasa loob lang kasi siya lagi ng vertices. And for the coordinates of minor axis, positive, negative 2. Then, Ang magta-touch lang sa ellipse ay ang vertices and endpoints ng minor. Okay? So, kunwari, ano yan? Oval. Oval-like. So, that is the graph of this equation. Y squared over 25 plus x squared over 4 equals 1. Question. Ay. Do you have question sa example? Number 3.
Wala po sa akin.
Okay, so let's proceed to ellipse with mas maayos. Yan, nandiyan naman siya. So let's proceed to center, ellipse with center at HK. If the axis and the center its equation by the translation formulas of section 2.8 of the ellipse. So instead of x squared over a squared plus y squared over b squared equals 1, we will have now translation of coordinate axis. Hindi ko na to na-discuss sa inyo. Dapat ito ay kadugtong ng, kasi circle, merong families of circle and translation of axis. Nagkakaroon ng panibagong axis. So we'll have for x-axis, magkakaroon ng x prime. For y-axis, magkakaroon ng y prime. Dahil nagkakaroon ng bagong axis, kaya siya translation, nagbabago, nagkakaroon din ng panibagong origin kasi nagmumove eh. Kaya dito meron tayong O prime. Okay, so by substitution, if x prime is equal to x minus h and y prime equals y minus k, we will come up with this. Okay, standard form. So this is the standard form. Di ba lagi namang magkasama si x at h, y at si k. Okay, so meron tayong center at hk. Kanina kasi ang origin, kaya x minus 0 and the square root of that is only x squared. So dahil nasa hk na ang center, nag-iiba na. So the standard form, if the foci is on the x-axis, we will have this standard form, the square root of x minus h over a squared plus the square root of y minus k over b squared equals 1. So here, the major axis is on the x-axis. The second one, the major axis is parallel to the y-axis. So we will have this is the standard form, the square root of y minus k over a squared plus the square root of x minus h over b squared equals 1. So ang a squared natin, ang numerator niyan nasa y. Kasi ang major axis natin ay nasa y-axis. And then these are the standard forms of equations of ellipses. So we can also write this in general. This is standard form into general form. Laging ang general form class, laging naka-equate sa 0. So we will try that in example. So let's have a summary. Kasi kanina meron tayong with center at the origin. Of course, meron din ditong center at HK. With center at HK. Kanino yung maingay na ano? Center at HK. Okay, so ganun din. If the foci of the given ellipse with foci on a line parallel to the x-axis. The standard form is the square root of x minus h over a squared plus the square root of y minus k over b squared equals 1. If the ellipse with foci on a line parallel to the y-axis parallel to the y-axis, the standard form of the ellipse is the square root of y minus k over a squared plus x, the square root of x minus h over b squared equals 1. Okay, so it's just the same to find c, that is square root of a squared minus b squared, where a should be greater than the b. And the vertices, sa vertices, ang major axis natin nasa x. So therefore, magkakaroon tayo, di ba ang vertices class, HK na. So H, positive, negative A, sorry. So we'll have H plus or minus A, K. Kasi nasa x-axis ang major axis. Kapag naman ang major axis nasa y, we will have H, K plus or minus A. Diba ang A, laging sa A ito. Sa foci naman, lagi siyang nakapalo kay vertices. Pero si foci, sa C siya. H plus or minus C, K. Okay? And then, kung ang parallel, kung ang major axis ay nasa Y, so, sa Y coordinates tayo mag-a-add. For foci, K plus or minus C. Okay? Wag malilito. And then, coordinates ng minor, so this is for B, F, P, F. This is the endpoints of minor axis. This is the major axis. Kung ang major axis ay nasa X, of course, ang minor axis nasa Y. So, H, K, plus or minus, divide sa B, B. Okay? Dito naman, ang major axis nasa Y. So, kay H ka magdadagdag ng B or magbabawas ng value ng B. So, we'll have B equals, B is H plus or minus B, K. Ano pa?
Yung
Sa minor axis, the equation, just in case lang meron kasi sa mga given condition, given to, okay? Ang length ng major axis class ay 2A. Okay? Ang length, di ba yun yung kanina, the sum of foci is equal to 2A. Kasi yun yung vertices. Gano'ng kalaki yung vertices natin? That's 2A. So ibig sabihin, for the minor axis, the length is 2b. Okay? The equation for minor axis, 'di ba ang minor axis natin dito ay nasaan? Nasa y. So dapat ang equation, ang minor axis natin ay nasa y, tama. So ang equation ay x equals h. Okay? So dito, the equation ng minor axis is y equals k. X equals h, that is parallel to y-axis. Pag in-imagine nyo yung line na yan. Okay? That is parallel to y, so ibig sabihin ang direction niyan, vertical. Pag parallel naman sa x-axis, horizontal ang direction. And for the lattice rectum, ito lang yung mga additional information. Just in case na mabanggit sila sa, you're going to find the equation of the ellipse given the following conditions. Pero pag naman nagsosolve tayo, hindi naman na sila kinukuha. Just in case lang, pag given ang condition. So for the lattice rectum, the equation is x equals, di ba ang lattice rectum nakasunod yan sa foci. So x equals h plus or minus c. Dalawa ang lattice rectum ng ellipse. Sa parabola, isang lattice rectum, isang directrix. Sa ellipse, dalawang lattice rectum. Kaya dalawang equation to class. X equals h plus c and x equals h minus c. Okay? Here, kung ang major axis ay nasa y, the equation of lattice rectum is y equals k plus or minus c. Laging partner si x kay h, si y kay k. Okay? So far yan yung kailangan. And the length of the lattice rectum pala. Ganun pa din. 2b squared over a. Okay? So ganun pa din dito ang length. 2b squared over a. Okay, so it's just the same. Length is square a. Okay, so let's write. Find the equation of an ellipse. With foci at 4, -2 and 10, -2 and the vertex at 12, -2. Find the equation of an ellipse with foci at 4, -2 and 10, -2 and a vertex at 12, -2. So since magkaiba, okay, magkaiba ang coordinates ng x and y. Dito lang sila sa isang nagpareho. Yung sa x coordinates nila, magkaiba. Ibig sabihin, class, ang center nito ay HK. Wala sa origin. Okay? So your foci will have 4, -2 and 10, -2. Ano ang standard form na hindi nagbabago si K? Kanina. C nasa ng major axis?
Sa Y po. Tama po.
Pag hindi nagbabago ang K-class, the major axis is on X axis. Okay, kasi 'di ba kanina this one. Yan o, si K same lang. So nasa X axis ang major axis. Okay, so ibig sabihin mas malaki ang we will have x squared over a squared plus, I know, this is with center at HK. So we will have the squared of x minus h over a squared plus the squared of y minus k over b squared equals 1. Okay? And then, so sabi sa, when we graph it for negative 2, so ibig sabihin pahiga to kasi mas mahaba sa x. Graph muna natin. For negative 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. For negative 2 and 10. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Negative 2. That's the foci. Ang vertex, one of the vertices is 12, negative 2, 10. 11, 12. Hindi pa natin alam kung ano ang isang vertex. Pero dapat same yan class ng distance. We will have 1, 2. So later, tingnan natin kung ang vertex nga ng isa ay 1, 2. Dito, 2, negative 2. Mamaya, sa isang vertex. So kung mapapansin natin, alamin natin ang distance ng foci. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we know that the length of minor axis, the minor, length of the foci, sabihin, hindi pala to, iba pala yan. Ang distance class ng F at F prime ay 6. Okay? So therefore, nasan ang gitna ng dalawa? That's the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So ang gitna sa pang 3. 1, 2, 3. This is the center. Center at 2, 4, 6, 7, negative 2. Okay? The center is at 7, negative 2. Kinuha natin yung gitna nito. Okay? Ang distance kasi ng F to F prime is 6. So, ang half nun, that is the center. Okay? So, kung i-check niyo yung mga graph natin kanina sa previous examples, that's how we get also the center. Okay? Kasi syempre siya ngayon nasa gitna ng foci. That's the center. So, H is 7, K is negative 2. Okay? And then, since we have now the center, and this is the K, right? This is the K. Nagbabago ay sa X coordinate, right? That is H plus or minus A. And then, how are we going to find the value of A? We're going to count how many, what is the distance from center to vertex. So, ganun din dapat dito sa kabila. 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Ibig sabihin, the value of A class is 5. Okay. And the value of the C from center to foci is 1, 2, 3. We already have the value of A and the C. We don't know the P. Therefore, here A squared is 25. C squared is 9. Let's find the value of the P. B is equal to square root of A squared minus C squared.
4
Positive,
po.
negative. So we will have positive, negative, positive, negative. So B is square root of 25 minus 9, which is positive, negative. So 25 minus 9 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. So the value of B is positive, negative, 4. So the vertices is on the x-axis. So we will have, magbabago dapat mag-a-add tayo sa even 2. Ito siya, 12, negative 2. And 7 minus 5 will have 2 and k retained. That's the vertices. Ayun yung kaninang nano natin, no? 2, negative 2. Di pantay. 2, negative 2. Next, foci. Tama ba yung foci natin? Sunod siya kay sa x-coordinate tayo mag-add. Pero sa C, plus C naman siya. H, 7 plus 3, 10, negative 2. Alright, 10, negative 2. Next, 7 minus 3, it's 4, negative 2. Correct. And the coordinates for the minor axis. Ang major axis ay nasa x. So, ibig sabihin kay y tayo magdagdag. Copy ang h, 7. K plus or minus b. Negative 2 plus 4, it's 2. The other one, negative 2 minus 4, it's negative 6. So, 7, 2, 2, 2, 4, 6, 7, 7, negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, connect ang minor, endpoints ng minor at major. Okay, so that is, we don't know pa pala the equation of an ellipse. So we'll have x minus h is 7. The square root of x minus 7 over a squared is 25 plus y minus negative 2. So it becomes positive. The square root of y plus 2 over b squared. B squared is 16 equals 1. That is the equation of an ellipse. This is the standard form. Okay? Any question for this example?
Wala naman po.
Okay, so how, again, nabanggit ko kanina ang eccentricity. eccentricity class is the ratio of C and A. C and A. Ang C natin dito ay, what's the value of C? 3. 3 over 5. 3/5, which is 0.3 divided by 5. 60? 0.6? 0.6. So kapag ang eccentricity, at kita kasi dito medyo malaki yung ellipse natin. So if So again, ang sabi ko kanina, the eccentricity of a circle is 0 kasi perfect circle na siya. So ito medyo malaki kasi 0.6, malapit sa 1. How are we going to summarize? So it says here that as E approaches 1, ibig sabihin pag ang value ni E ay malapit kay 1, as E approaches 1 and C approaches A, yung value naman ni C ay papalapit sa value ni A, and B approaches 0. So as E increases, the foci separate, each receding from the center, and B decreases. So hence the ellipse starting as a circle becomes narrow and narrower if E is 1, okay, or C equals A. Pag equal ang value ni C at A, the eccentricity is equal to 1. Ibig sabihin masyado nang maliit yung ellipse. Paliit ng paliit. Kasi ang 0, bilog na. So, ibig sabihin hanggang lumalaki yung value ng eccentricity, lumiliit. Kaya halimbawa, ang circle, the eccentricity is 0. Pag medyo malapit, lumiliit na siya. Lumiliit ng lumiliit. Pag mas malaki, lumalapit sa 1, mas lumiliit ang ellipse. Kasi ang eccentricity ng circle, 0. So, ibig sabihin, pag lumalaki yung value ng eccentricity, mas lumiliit yung ellipse. Okay? We know that planets move in elliptical orbits. The Earth orbits the Sun almost circular with approximate eccentricity of 0.0167. The concept of ellipse is also used in engineering design such as elliptical roads, in architectural design such as ceilings of churches and galleries, in arts such as logo designs, and in medicine such as medical equipment. An example of a medical equipment is the lithotripter, a device used to treat kidney and gallstone without open surgery. Okay, so ano lang yan? Note lang yon. Okay, so let's have another example. Ba't hindi ako makapag... Reduce to standard. Reduce to standard form of the equation 4y squared plus 9x squared minus 24y minus 72x plus 144 equals 0. So this is in general form. We're going to write this equation into standard. So we're going to write again the given. Isolate terms with y. Group them according to their variables. So we'll have 4y squared minus 24y plus 9x squared minus 72x. So isolate natin ang constant, negative 144. So pagsamahin yung may variable na y, yung may variable na x. And then factor out their common, which is the common term is 4 multiplied by y squared. 4 times y squared is 4y squared minus 6y. Because 4 multiplied by negative 6y, it's negative 24y. Get the third term using, this is completing the squares. Negative 6 divided by 2, it's negative 3 squared it, 9. Plus, factor out their common term, 9. Because we need to have the coefficient of x squared and y squared should be equal to 1. So, pina-factor out natin. So, 9 multiplied by x squared, that is 9x squared, minus 8x, because 9 multiplied by negative 8x, that is negative 72x. Get the third term, using completing the squares again. Negative 8 divided by 2, that's 4,
4.
squared it, 16. Equals negative 144. Before class, kung ano yung inad natin dito, yun na yun. Kaso kasi meron na ditong nag-factor out tayo eh. So we need to multiply. 4 multiplied by 9. So that is 36. 9 multiplied by 16. That is 144. Okay? And then, factor this, yung mga naka-parenthesis. So, 4. So, the factor of y squared minus 6y plus 9 is the squared of y minus 3. Right? Square root of y squared, y. The sign depends on the sign of the second term. Square root of 9, 3. Plus 9 over square root of x squared, x. The sign depends on the second term. Square root of 16, 4. When you expand this, the square root of x minus 4, ito din yan. You expand square of y minus 3, ito siya. Equals, so this is 0. So equals 36. Dapat mag-equal sa 1. So we divide both sides by 36.
Ma'am, excuse me po.
Yes.
Saan po nakuha yung 36 and 144 pa na inad po sa kabila?
This one. 4 multiplied by 9, 36. 9 multiplied by 16, 144.
Okay po, ma'am. Thank you po. Thank you po.
Okay. Next, so we divide both sides by 36. Be careful. Itong 36 na to, binomial to class. I mean, we have, binomial, two terms. 4 squared of y minus 3 over 36 plus 9 squared of x minus 4 over 36. Huwag niyong kalimutan. So, when we simplify this, we will have the squared of y minus 3. Ang 4 over 36, that is 1 over 9. Merong 1 dito, 1 over 9. Plus the squared of x minus 4 over 9 over 36, that is 1/4. 1/4 equals 36 divided by 36, that is equal to 1. So this is now the standard form. The squared of y minus 3 over 9 plus the squared of x minus 4 over 4 equals 1. Question. If you want to graph, okay, Yung magandang graph nito ay nasa module. Pero syempre, madali naman din yan. Mas malaki ang denominator ni y. Ibig sabihin, ang major axis natin ay nasa y-axis. Center at laging mauuna ang partner ni x ay si h. So we will have 4. Kung negative yan, positive dito. So negative 3. So 3. Center at 4, 3. Dahil ang major axis natin ay nasa y, ibig sabihin, k tayo mag-a-add ng a. Add and minus. So 4, wait, a squared is equal to 9. So a is positive negative 3. B squared equals 4. So b is positive negative 2. And c is equal to positive negative square root of 9 minus 4. So positive negative square root of 5, the value of c. So for the vertices, 3 plus 3, 6. 3 minus 3, 0. Okay? 4, 6, 4, 0. And then, foci. So, kay K tayo mag-a-add at magma-minus ng C. Copy H. 4, 3 plus square root of 5. And 4, 3 minus square root of 5. That's the coordinates for foci. And for the coordinates of minor axis, ang major axis nasa x-axis. So sa y-axis. So sa x-axis naman tayo mag-add. Okay, so 4, but the value of b? 4 plus 2. So b. 4 plus 2, it's 6, copy k. 4 minus 2, 2, copy k. That's the coordinates. So, ang graph niyan, class, ay ito. This one. Diba? Ito yung mga coordinates natin, no? Vertices, 4, 6, 4, 0. Tapos, 2, 3, 6, 3. The center is at 4, 3. Yan. Nandito naman, vertices, yan. Foci, minor axis. So what is the application of ellipse? Saan ba natin makikita? So sabi nga kanina, even sa medical equipments, yung ginagamit daw sa used to treat kidney and gallstone. So ellipse yung shape nun. Conic sections have been used to describe natural and astronomical data. Alam naman natin sa heavenly bodies sa astronomy, okay, the Earth orbits the Sun in elliptical orbits. So one of the applications also is Kepler's law of planetary motion. It states that, number 1, the planets have elliptic paths with the Sun at a focus. The second one, the line connecting to the Sun with a planet sweeps over equal areas in equal time intervals. And 3, the square of the length of time for a complete revolution of a planet is proportional to the cube of 1/2 the length of the major axis, that is a cube. In industry, much use is made of elliptic shape gears and semi-elliptic springs. So those are some applications of ellipse. Question. Are we clear with ellipse, class?
Yes, ma'am. Clear po.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, clear. So we will finish the lesson. Kasi ang ellipse and hyperbola is almost the same. It's just that hyperbola, the difference. Okay, kasi 'di ba ang ellipse, that is the sum of the distance of the foci. For hyperbola, that is the difference of the foci. So instead na plus, okay, for hyperbola, difference, so minus na siya, subtraction. The third type of conic that we shall consider is the hyperbola. The equations of hyperbola resembles those of ellipses, but the properties of these two kinds of conics differ considerably in some respect. So a hyperbola is the set of points in a plane such that the difference of the distances of each point, kaya ito minus na, the distance ng point P to F prime, the distance ng point P to F. So meron pa din tayong foci. So to derive the equation of the hyperbola, we take the origin midway between the foci and a coordinate axis on the line through the foci. We denote foci by F prime, that's negative C0. Diba ang foci, the coordinates is positive, negative C0 if the major axis is along or on the x-axis. And the difference of the distances between a point of the hyperbola and the foci by the positive constant is 2a. Okay? Then from the above definition, so when we apply this, we will come up with this standard form. So kung mapapansin nyo, class, minus kasi difference ng dalawang foci eh. Sa ellipse, sum of foci, right? The sum of the distances of foci. So dito, we will have, this is the hyperbola with center at the origin. So ganun pa din. So dito, ang major axis niya, hindi na major axis ang tawag pag sa foci, ay pag sa hyperbola, transverse axis. Magkakaroon na tayo ng transverse axis, that is the major axis katumbas sa ellipse, and the conjugate axis, that is the minor axis katumbas niya sa ellipse. Okay? Kung ang transverse axis ay nasa on the x-axis, nandoon. Okay? Sabihin, kung nasan si A, nandoon ang transverse axis. Okay? So this is the standard form for hyperbola with foci on the x-axis. Okay? Kapag naman hyperbola with foci on the y-axis, so we'll have y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. So nandito yung mga terms under hyperbola. A hyperbola, class, is like the ellipse. There are two axes of symmetry. Okay? Two vertices, two foci, and two lattice rectum. Ano ba yung sinasabing axis of symmetry? It's the x or y axis. Depende kung nasa ng major at minor. The intersection of the two axes of symmetry is the center. Kung ito ang graph ng hyperbola, okay, kailangan mo ng center. Okay, sabi, the intersection of two axes of symmetry is the center of the hyperbola. You're going to, when you form a broken line, okay, diagonally, yan, that is the center. Ito kasi center at the origin. The hyperbola, class, intersects the focal axis in 2 points called the vertices. So meron pa rin tayong, tulad daw sa ellipse, ang hyperbola, meron ding vertices, meron ding foci. Yung coordinates nila is just the same sa ellipse. Ang vertices, we have A0, positive or negative A0. For foci, positive, negative C, 0. Ito kasi, ang transverse axis ay nasa x-axis or ang major axis niya. Okay? Tapos ang B, ganun pa rin. 0, positive, negative B. Kasi ang minor axis ay nasa y. Okay? So the hyperbola intersects the focal axis in 2 points called the vertices. So these vertices are the endpoints of a segment called transverse axis. So again, sa ellipse ang tawag major axis. Sa hyperbola ang tawag ay transverse axis. The center is also the midpoint between the two vertices. So equal pa din ang distance ng origin, from your center to vertex, center to another vertex. Ganun din sa origin to foci. Equal yan. The axis that contain the foci, the center, and the vertices is called the focal axis or the principal axis. Kung nasaan ang vertices at foci, ang tawag sa axis na yon ay principal axis. So ito, ang principal axis natin ay x kasi nga nandun ang major axis, nandun ang transverse axis. The center is also the midpoint. No. Another axis that plays an important role in defining the hyperbola is the conjugate. Conjugate axis, ang katumbas niyan ay minor axis. This axis has no point in common with the hyperbola. It is perpendicular. Kung ang transverse mo ay x-axis, y-axis is the conjugate. Kasi perpendicular to x-axis, which is the y-axis. This axis has no point in common with the hyperbola. It is perpendicular to the transverse axis at the center. Next, so we have again the center, the vertices, the foci, the transverse, the conjugate. Next is the lattice rectum. Ito na. Okay. So when you graph class, you need the vertex. Iko-connect nyo sa endpoints ng lattice rectum. So the endpoints for lattice rectum, if the transverse is on the x-axis, we will have C b squared over A and C b squared, negative b squared over A. Itong, yan, yung lattice rectum. Itong broken line, that's the lattice rectum. Ang i-connect nyo class, vertices doon sa endpoints ng lattice rectum. Okay? Ito ang pinaka-graph kasi ng hyperbola, itong dalawang to. Ganon din sa kabila. I-connect nyo ang vertex dito sa endpoints ng lattice rectum. And you form this curve. Okay? Ano pa? A pair of lines that is closely related to but also not part of the hyperbola are the asymptotes of the hyperbola. The asymptotes intersect at the center of the hyperbola. A hyperbola approaches its asymptotes but will never intersect them. So like in rational function, there is also an asymptote. There is a certain value na kahit anong gawin, hindi mag-meet. Okay? Kaya ang sabi, papalapit lang ng papalapit pero never kayong magtatagpo. That's asymptote. Ang hyperbola ay meron din. A hyperbola approaches its asymptotes but will never intersect them. Kahit anong gawin, hindi magtatagpo. Each of the asymptotes passes through the opposite vertices of the auxiliary rectangle. So let's make a table for hyperbola. So hyperbola with center at the origin. Okay. The equation of the hyperbola with foci on the x-axis. So ang transverse axis mo ay ang x or ang principal axis. The equation of the hyperbola is x squared over a squared minus y squared over b squared equals 1. If the hyperbola, if the equation of the hyperbola with foci on the y-axis, x squared over y squared over a squared minus x squared over b squared equals 1. Where c, ba na yung formula? To find the c, that is positive negative square root of a squared plus b squared. And c is still, c here is greater than a. Mas malaki na si c kasi sa ellipse mas malaki si a. Equation, vertices. So, ganun pa din, class. Ang foci mo nasa x-axis. So, ibig sabihin, dito ka din, meron ka ditong value, positive, negative, a, 0. Dito, ang foci nasa y-axis o sa y naman, 0, positive, negative, a. Next, foci. So, follow lang. Pero sa foci, di ba, c naman yan. Positive, negative, c, 0, 0, positive, negative, c. This is again for the transverse axis. For the conjugate or the coordinates for conjugate axis, class, ang endpoints niya ay 0, positive, negative, b. Kasi ang major mo ay ang transverse mo nasa x. So, ang conjugate mo, ang coordinate 0, positive, negative, b. Pag naman ang foci on the y-axis, the conjugate axis is positive, negative, b, 0. Ano pa? Transverse. For conjugate, class, the equation is x equals 0. Dito, y equals 0. Ang location, ang conjugate, class, ay minor. Ang location niyan ay on the y-axis. Kasi ang major mo nasa x. So, ang location ng conjugate nasa y. Dito naman, on the x-axis. Tapos, ang length ng conjugate axis ay 2b. Parang sa ellipse din. Ganon din dito, 2b. Sa transverse naman, 2a. Same with ellipse. Diba? Ganon siya. Tapos, ang endpoints, syempre, ito na, 0, positive, negative, b. Dito, positive, negative, b. That's it. Lattice rectum pala. Kailangan natin yung endpoints ng lattice rectum. So for lattice rectum, the equation of lattice rectum is x equals positive, negative, c. Diba sa ellipse, ganito din, nakapalo sa foci. So dito, the equation for lattice rectum, if the foci on the y-axis is y equals positive, negative, c. The length of the lattice rectum is just the same with ellipse. Doon we have 2b squared over a, right? For the length. Ganon din dito. Ang length ay 2b squared over a. How about the endpoints? So we will have for the endpoints of lattice rectum, ito na lang class. We will have negative c, positive negative, itong part na to, b squared, kasi hatiin natin sa dalawa, b squared over a. Tapos, so meron tayo ditong dalawang points na. Okay? Meron pang dalawang points merong dalawang points sa right side, dalawang points sa left side. Negative, so c, positive, negative, b squared over a. Again, we have negative c, b squared over a, negative c minus b squared over a. Another 2 points, c, b squared over a, c, negative b squared over a. Okay? Kung ang foci on the x-axis, that is the endpoints of lattice rectum. Kasi 'di ba, i-connect nyo ang vertex to lattice rectum, yung dalawang endpoints, yung pag ganun. Limbawa, ito yung vertex, itong dalawang to. Meron pa sa kabila. Limbawa yan. This is the vertex, itong dalawang endpoints. Kaya meron tayong apat. 'Di ba? 1, negative c, positive b squared over a, negative c, negative b squared over a. So, dalawa yon. Tapos meron pang dalawa din dito. Yan ang pagkukunikin nyo, di ba? Yan yung endpoints, itong dalawang to, ng lattice rectum. How about if the foci on the, excuse me, on the y-axis? Pagbabalik ta rin nyo to. Okay, so we will have positive, negative, b squared over a, negative c, and positive, negative, b squared over a, c. Okay? So, kung sa taas naman, pag ganun ang, dito ang vertices, ang endpoints, yan. Halimbawa lang yan. Ito ang center nito ay wala sa origin. Halimbawa ito ang vertex. Yung dalawang, ayan. Yan. Endpoints. Okay, so let's try example. Yung summary class ng hyperbola with center at HK, same lang din class sa ellipse. Yun nga lang minus dito. Yung coordinates niya, ganun din. So let's try example para mas clear. Sketch the curve for 1. Sketch the curve 36 x squared minus 64 y squared equals 2,304. Sketch the curve 36x squared minus 64y squared equals 2,304. Obviously, this equation is for hyperbola because we have here minus. So how are we going to graph this curve? Of course, you need to write this first into standard form. So we'll have 36x squared minus 64y squared equals 2,304. We're going to divide both sides by 2,304. So we will have 36 over 2,304, that is x squared over 64 minus 64y squared divided by 2,304, that is y squared over 36 equals, this is equal to 1. So let's find the coordinates of the vertices. So it means the center is at the origin. Okay. The vertex, the coordinates of the vertex. So mas malaki class ang denominator ng x squared. Ibig sabihin, ang transverse axis natin ay nasa x, on the x-axis. So we will have a squared equals 64. So a is positive negative 8. B squared equals 36. So b is positive negative 6. We'll find this value of c, that's positive negative a squared plus b squared. A squared plus b squared, so 64 plus 36. That is square root of 100. So c is equal to positive negative 10. Okay, so for vertices, ang coordinates niyan, dahil ang transverse axis ay nasa x, so we will have positive negative 8, 0. For the foci, follow lang sa vertices, pero yung value ni c, positive negative 10, 0. Okay? So this is for transverse axis. This is, no. For conjugate, that's the B. 0, positive, negative B, 6. I'm sorry, positive, negative 6. This is the coordinates of your conjugate axis. Tapos, kailangan din natin kunin class ang length of lattice rectum. Length of lattice rectum. So, same lang sa ellipse. 2b squared over a. 2 over 36 over a. 8. 72 divided by 8. So, the length of the lattice rectum is 9. And equation. And then, endpoints. Endpoints of lattice rectum. Yun yung mga kailangan. Vertices, lattice rectum, foci, endpoints ng conjugate and transverse axis. Endpoints of L are, so we will have, sa C yan, di ba, ang LR. Positive, negative 10, tapos B squared over A, 36 over A. So positive, negative. So we have 10, positive, negative, 36 over 8, divide by 4.
9 over 2 po.
9 halves. All right, 9 halves. Okay? So pwede nyo paghiwalayin class. 10, 9 halves. Negative 10, bali apat to eh. 10, negative 9 halves. Negative 10, 9 halves. Negative 10, negative 9 halves. Dapat apat yan, yung endpoints ng lattice rectum. So let's graph. Ang transverse ay nasa x. So dito na lang. 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Tapos, 10. 8, 9, 10. 9, 10. Ngayon, class, ang focus, ang foci, nasa labas na ng vertices kasi ang sa parabola, tsaka sa ellipse, nasa loob. Tapos, kailangan nating endpoints. 10. Ito yan. 10, 9 halves. That's 4.5. 3, 4, 5. Kalahati. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kalahati. So, pwede kayong maglagay dito ng broken line. Tapos, kabila din. Negative 10, 4.5. Negative 10, negative 4.5. Then, here. Okay. Ano pa bang graph natin yan? Okay, so that's it. So let's check the graph dun sa module. Number 1. Ayun. So ang ginawa, nag-form ng rectangle. Hindi pa natin pala nawalagay yung points ng 0, 6. Tapos connect them. Makakabuo ka ng rectangle. Okay. Itong line na to, class, that is the asymptote. Okay. Kahit anong gawin yan, itong graph natin ng hyperbola, hindi dyan lalapit. Hindi dyan didikit sa line na yan. How are we going to solve for the equation of asymptote? Hindi ko pala yun nalagay. So for the equation of asymptote, class, balik tayo sa, wala na dito. Wala ng space. Alright, so dito na lang, class, asymptote, kapag ang foci ay nasa y-axis, the equation of the asymptotes is y equals positive, negative, b over ax. It's a linear function. At dalawa ang asymptote. Yung line kanina, di ba sabi ang asymptote, magta-touch yan sa center. Okay? Diagonal, yan yung diagonal na lines. Dalawa. Y equals b over ax. The slope is positive. And the other one, ang line ay pointing to the left, negative b over ax. Sa kabila naman, pagbabalik ta rin nyo lang to. Still aligned. So, dapat ang asymptote dito, if the foci on the y-axis is y equals positive, negative, a over b x. Excuse me. Okay? So, doon sa graph natin, balikan natin yung graph. Saan yun? This one. Ay, ito ba yun? Ito nga. So, meron tayo dito for the asymptote. Asymptotes. The equation is y equals positive, negative, b over a. Kasi nasa x axis ang major, ang transverse. B over A. 6/8. That is 3/4 x. So, ang slope natin, 3/4. So, 1, 2, 3. Tapos 4 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ulit. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ganun din dito. So, pwede naman bababa. 1, 2, 3, 4. Punta sa left. Parehong negative. So, positive. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, 4. Yan. So, pag nag-drawing ka dyan ng line, yung line na yan, hindi yan magta-touch dito sa graph natin. Hindi natin nag-graph yung, ano bang hindi natin nag-graph? 6. Yung endpoints ng conjugate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, yan. Mag-drawing kayo ng tas yung negative. Dito din, negative 3/4. So, pwedeng umakyat. 1, 2, 3. Cut ka ng 3, punta ka sa left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ito naman, baba. 1, 2, 3, 4. Punta sa, baba ka ng 3. 1, 2, 3. Punta sa left. Ay, sa right. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's also a line. Okay, line yan. Tapos, paano ba nabubuo ang yung rectangle? I-connect nyo lang yung coordinates ng conjugate. Yan. Ng conjugate, 0, 6, 0, negative 6. Dito sa vertex, negative 8, 0, 8, 0. May mabubuo ka dyan na rectangle. Okay, may hirap kasi class mag-drawing dito sa gamit tong pen tablet. Okay, so that is example number 1 for hyperbola. So, mag-drawing. Diba? Hindi sakto yung line natin. Try nyo na lang din dyan i-graph ng maayos. Okay, that's it. Question sa 1. Clear ba tayo sa hyperbola? So, halos katulad din yan ng ellipse. Yung pagkukuha ng mga endpoints, ng mga coordinates. Okay, last example na. So, yung number 2, dahil same lang din naman siya sa ellipse. So, magta-try tayo ng hyperbola with center at HK. So, kung babalikan natin yung sa ellipse. Diba yan? Yan, ellipse with center at HK. So, sa hyperbola, ang center at HK, kung ang hyperbola, okay, ang foci niya on the x-axis, so magkakaroon ka lang ng the square root of x minus h over a squared minus the square root of y minus k over b squared equals 1. Kapag naman ang foci on the y-axis, the standard form is the square root of y minus k over a squared minus square root of x minus h over b squared equals 1. Tapos to find the value of c, that is positive negative square root of a squared plus b squared. Okay? Sa vertices, ganun din. ang coordinates niya. Okay? Foci. Minor axis sa hyperbola ay ang conjugate axis. Sa vertices, ang major axis naman ay ang transverse axis. Ano pa? Sa latus rectum, yun lang naman din ang kailangan natin, yung endpoints ng latus rectum. Ganun pa din naman ang endpoints niya. Okay, so, itry natin. Number 2. Ano ba tayo? Number 2. Draw the graph of 12y squared. Draw the graph of 12y squared minus 4x squared plus 72y plus 16x plus 44 equals 0. So you need to group them. So you can group them with the same variable. So we will have 12y squared plus 72y minus 42, minus 4x squared plus 16x equals negative 44. Okay, so isolate terms with y with x. And then factor out their common factor, which their common is 12. 12 multiplied by y squared, that is equal to 12y squared plus 72 divided by 12, that's 6y. And find the third term, 6 divided by 2, that's 3. Squared it, 9. Okay, always remember b over 2 squared. To find the third term, minus 4 times x squared, negative 4 times x squared, negative 4x squared, minus 4x, because negative 4 times negative 4x, that is 16x. Negative 4 divided by 2, negative 2. Squared it, positive 4. Equals negative 44. 12 times 9, that's 108. Negative 4 times 4, that's negative 16. Completing the squares. Factor this one. 12 square root of y squared, y. The sign depends on the sign of the second term. Square root of the third term, 3. So, the factors of y squared plus 6y plus 9 is the square root of y plus 3 minus 4. Square root of x squared, x. The sign depends on the second term. Square root of 4, 2. The square root of x minus 2. When we expand, this is the answer. Negative 44 plus 108 minus 16. The answer is
48 po.
48. And we divide both sides by 48. So we'll have the square root of y plus 3 over 12 over 48, that is 1/4, minus the square root of x minus 2, 4 over 48, that is 1 over 12, equals 48 divided by 48, the answer is 1. So this is the standard form. The center is at 2, negative 3. Okay, this is H K. And the transverse axis class is on X. X-axis. So, ang vertices natin, so sa X siya, kunin muna natin ang value ng A, B, and C. A squared equals 12. Therefore, A is positive, negative, square root of 12, or positive, negative, 2, square root of 3. B squared equals 4. According to our standard form. So B is positive, negative 2. And for the C, that is square root of 12 plus 4. That's 16. Positive, negative, square root of 16, which is 4. Positive, negative 4. So we have A, B, and C. Ang transverse axis ay nasa x-axis. So mag-a-add tayo kay H ng A. Add and minus 2. Plus and minus 2. Plus 2 square root of 3. Negative 3. And 2 minus 2 square root of 3. Okay, para makuha nyo kung ano yung equivalent nito, you try to use your calculator. 2 plus 2 square root of 3, what's the approximate value? 2 minus 2 square root of 3, what is the approximate value? And Pokai. So follow lang din dito, pero ito ay sa C. 2 plus 4, 6, negative 3. And 2 minus 4, negative 2, negative 3. And the endpoints of conjugate. Kung ang major axis, kung ang transverse axis ay nasa X, ang conjugate axis ay nasa Y axis. So sa Y naman tayo mag-add 2, negative 3 plus 2, negative 1, 2, negative 3 minus 2, negative 5. So meron na tayong center, vertices, foci, endpoints of conjugate, length of LR, that's 2b squared over A. 2 times 4, A is what? 2 square root of 3. So we will have 4 square root of 3 over 3. And then, what are the endpoints? So we will have, sa C tayo, 4 so we will have negative C or 4 A squared over A, B squared over A, which is B squared 4 B squared over 4 over this 2 square root of 3. Yeah. B squared over A. B squared is 4. A is 2 square root of 3. 2 square root 2 over square root of 3. So 2 square root of 3 over 3. Tama ba? 2 square root of 3 over 3. Plus or minus plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 3 and negative c negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 3. Okay, plot the points. So kayo na mag-plot the points niyan. Pag ginrap yan, class, saan na yun? Okay, so ito yung mga nakuha natin. Nandiyan naman siya. Yung asymptote pa pala. Equation of asymptote. Dahil ang transverse axis ay nasa x-axis, the equation of asymptote is y equals positive negative b over ax. Okay, para magkaroon tayo ng lines. Diagonal lines. So this is the graph. Okay, ito nga ba yun? Number this one. Center at 2, negative 3. Ang coordinates, ayan, 2, negative 1, 2, negative 5. That is the conjugate. And then 2 plus 2 square root of 3, negative 3. And negative 2 minus, 2 minus 2 square root of 3, negative 3. Yung mga points kanina, class, ipa-plot nyo lang. Plot the points. Ayan. Itong mga to. Do you have questions? Clarification? I'm going to save your attendance for this day. Question, class.
None po, ma'am.
Clear naman. So,